As we prepare to start our council meeting this evening, if you would please silence your mobile devices.
Here she comes.
Okay. Good.
Good to see you.
Yeah. At this time, the mayor will call to order the regular city council meeting for 6 p.m. Tuesday, September the 3rd of 2024, City Council Chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. Have with us on the dais District 2, Donna Renee Anderson, District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Mayor Pro Tem, District 5, Phil Robinson, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, and not with us this evening, but excused, is District 3, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez. At this time, I'd like to invite Juan Gil to come forward. He's with the Iglesia Cristiana Ebenezer, and to do our invocation. If you would, please remain standing for our pledges.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with hearts full of gratitude for the opportunity to serve our community. Father, we ask for your wisdom and we ask for your guidance in this meeting, that every decision made here will be for the benefit of all those who live in our city. Father, we pray that you grant us the ability to listen to each other with open minds and hearts, to speak with clarity and respect, and to seek the common good above all else. Help us to set aside personal agendas and work together in unity, inspired by your love and by your justice. We pray that your peace rest upon this meeting, and may your hand be upon each person here, guiding our thoughts, words, and actions. We ask for your protection over our city and for your blessing on all those who lead and serve in any capacity. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
All right. Thank you, Pastor, for being with us this evening. We certainly appreciate you and all that you do for our community. I know it's going to be kind of boring in here. If you have to slip out, don't worry about it, and we'll be okay, all right? I know I can tell when people are trying to decide, should I stay or should I go? We're going to be all right. Thank you for those the kind prayer. Our next item on the agenda is Mayor and Council Community Recognition and Events. Does anybody have anything that they would like to recognize? Anyone or anything? Yes.
Yes, I would like to thank Pastor Arvis and First Lady Melanie Miller of the United Church of God in Christ, who hosted my first town meeting this past Saturday evening and had some representatives from my district. And it was very informative, but they opened their place of worship for that meeting and are very active, and I wanted to say thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, next item on the agenda is to hear remarks from visitors. Do we have any? All right, next on the agenda would be discuss draft of fiscal year 25 budget. This is going to be handled by our city manager, Mike Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, I think this is a good time of year because we're actually rolling along toward completion of this. I'm not going to go through the materials that are actually in section 4.1, but I'll tell you basically what's there. The budget as presented in detail line item form in our prior August the 30th edition of the budget. Is there. So all of that detail is many pages. And all of those line items are as those line items were on August the 30th.
You get an updated budget on Friday, and we're going to have that in binder style for you, and it will have all of the updates in it and all of the funds in it. So that's what the details in your packet were. Also in your packet, just so you can kind of keep track of it, is the overall budget schedule, and then again, that council feedback form that we have in there. We're always happy to get those council feedback forms. So that's a quick overview about what's in the packet itself. I wanted to concentrate my remarks on this PowerPoint presentation because I know everybody was interested in a thing I said last time around, which was, well, we did publish an FY25 budget with a general fund budget deficit of $1,116,000 roughly. And we discussed last time that I considered it to be staff's job to bring back to you a balanced budget. And that's what we've got an update for you on. The strategy that we took, generally speaking, was to try to close that gap with 50% in cuts and 50% in revenue. Obviously, if you just divide it in half, that means we were looking for $558,000 in cuts and $558,000 in revenue. But we also had the goal of keeping all the programs and staffing intact, having no property tax rate increase, and no fines, fees, charges, or anything else, recouping our expenses, that sort of thing, that we had not already discussed and presented to council. So that's a very narrow range, but it is, after all, a $43 million overall general fund budget. So we have some room in the budget to do some work. The results, and I'll just have this in summary form, and I'll give you some more details here in a second. We had about $615,000 in savings cuts, meaning we cut things out of the budget. We had about $586,000 in what I would call revenue corrections, and I'll detail those in a minute. And then as we went through everything with a fine-tooth comb, there are other numbers in the budget that change, nothing substantially, but we did end up with another $30,000 in net savings due to some adjustments that I'll just call those quality control, consistency, accounting clarity. So we made those changes as well. And the updated FY25 budget surplus is now $115,000. That's obviously not as much in the good as we would like it to be, but it's a lot better than being in the negative, and a good thing for a year where we're doing so much. So here's a look at the savings cuts. And again, I won't read all of them to you, but I'll just highlight a few things. We did some places where we were eliminating consultants, so you can see that in legislative and admin. We normally keep a line item there. Decided to delete those this time around. We have some items that are citywide, and when we say citywide projects, these are going to be things like unemployment insurance and training, tuition reimbursements. We can track those in the HR budget, or we can track those in the employee support fund. We've moved those over to the employee support fund because it's got ample ability to handle that. We did a little change to our volunteer firefighter allocation just to get back to the original FY23 actual number. Same thing with finance and getting them over to the FY23 actual number. The famous TEDC Crossroads patch, everybody should say, oh my gosh, I can't remember what that thing is. That is whenever we went from a 4/8 cent type A corporation to a 3/8 cent corporation, we all knew that meant that there was one agreement of the EDC that we would have to cover part of. We've been covering that out of general fund, and there's no reason not to cover that out of TERS number 1. And your TERS board's taken a look at that and knows what's going there. The next PowerPoint slide has just some more of that. We reduced or eliminated a couple of contingency items that we generally like to carry. What we normally do is start our budget process with a contingency in legislative and then just whittle that down as we go through our budget process. So now that's zeroed out. We eliminated the facade grant out of municipal development because the Paddock Board has been funding that over the last few years. So that's been running as zero because of what the Paddock Board's been doing. We did a little cut in a consultant municipal development, a little cut in our demolition budget. Of course, that's pending Building Standards Commission. Building Standards Commission will have about $46,000 remaining to work with to do demos. Another little contract labor cut in streets, getting back to FY23. We were trying to increase that. Same thing on the streetlight maintenance issue. We just wanted to get back to the actual FY23 spending, and we had an increase in there, but I think we can get that back to where we have managed that in the past. Those aren't too terribly painful. We think we can manage through with those, and those are all going to be recommendations to you. You might worry about building maintenance. We'll still have, I believe, $360,000 in building maintenance to work through the course of the year, and having that be balanced with FY23 actual, we're comfortable with that. So again, those are the savings, those are the cut amount. The next PowerPoint slide is the revenue correction side of it. TERS number 1 is transferring just a little bit more in to support some of the downtown efforts, and that's reflective here. We did go through and get our finals with Kaufman County Tax Office, so that $349,000 is not new. It's just the data on making sure that we and the Kaufman County folks are of the same mind. And again, it's just based on the exact same property tax rate that we already have in place. We went through a bevy of the smaller funds, interest, refuse collection, some FEMA issues, telecom franchise, the amount of money we get every year from HUD, and we said, okay, did we really peg those estimates just right, or can we adjust those in any way? So each of those funds listed there had somewhere between a 5 to 10% increase in the estimate, thinking that those were fair and not too starry-eyed or anything like that, still represent conservative approaches to revenue. And then we do something on a regular basis called project closeout. That's where we might have residual funds in an account from an old grant or from an old project or something, and we can go into those and close those out. Those are typically not particularly meaningful, and so as we gather those up during the course of FY25, we think that those will only amount to about $52,000. So those are our revenue corrections, and those are what's in there as well. The next slide gets more to the summary side of things. Start of FY25 cash and investments. This is where we think we'll start with actual real-life cash in the bank and investments in our pools that we invest in. So that's $3.2 million. Our revenue estimate for FY25 is $43,721,000. That's about $700,000 higher than this year. FY25 expenditures, $43,606,000, and that's again a little bit higher than this year. The FY25 net is small, but it's there, so that's good. That's a surplus of $115,000, and our end of FY25 cash and investments will be $3.3 million. Obviously, we're a growing city. It would be nice to be putting more into our reserves, and we'll keep an eye on that. But I think we've based this budget on good, conservative, sound estimates on revenue, and we think we can deliver what we're expected to deliver during FY25. As I mentioned before, one of the very important things about this has been not digging into anything we were already committed to. And we're doing that here because we're not going backwards on any of our crisp and clean. We're not going backwards on street maintenance. We're getting all of that done. The next PowerPoint slide does probably the better job of summarizing everything. So this is overall, not just general fund. In general, utility fund, utility capital reserve, impact fee funds, there's all consistent with multiple council workshops. Frankly, y'all started last year on impact fees, and then early in calendar year 24, on issues related to utility funds. Several of you came to us and said, hey, we really want to work very hard on utility rates and what's going on with the utility fund to make sure that we have a balance there. And so I really appreciate council's attention to that. Definitely worked overtime on that with several different workshops on that. And all of that is consistent with all of those workshops, so we're not changing anything there at all. The staff, as we were requested to, and I thought was an awesome idea, we're working on the public messaging for that we can release in early October. I think it's very important to say, okay, citizens, this is what's going on. This is what North Texas Municipal Water District's doing. This is what we're doing. This is what you can plan on seeing in the real world. We actually have a lot to say there with work that we've completed or is underway. And so we're working on that public messaging. Allison and DJ Brower are going to be cooperating on that, and we'll get something out for you to see there. General fund, capital improvement fund, stormwater fund, utility capital reserve. If I put all of those together and really think about, are we doing right by keeping things off of our debt portfolio? And the answer is, we're putting about $2 million, slightly over $2 million in pay-as-you-go local streets. That's our summer streets maintenance program that you've gotten used to. $2 million for pay-as-you-go drainage maintenance improvements, and $3 million for pay-as-you-go utility system improvement. That's that UCR number that we tried so hard to move from $2 million to $3 million, and that pays for those acute, badly needed repairs. That's $7 million in things that you're not borrowing for, and I think that's a huge achievement to do pay-as-you-go and deliver some really good stuff for our citizens with those funds. Prior year certificates of obligations are going to deliver some major street, public safety, and water utility projects. And again, y'all know the flavor there. We'll be working on Apache Trail. We've got Newton scheduled up and working on some partnerships with that. You've got your fire station number 3, and you've got a good collection of water utility projects that were all funded in prior year COs, many of those funded with subsidized borrowing through the Texas Water Development Board. So that's where we get that interest rate savings with help from the Texas Water Development Board. The general fund has the highlight I've been mentioning that was our goal for some time now. We've got the 16 new firefighters in there, the 3 new police patrol officers in there. We were able to afford, and I mentioned this last time around, a 4% civil service increase, 2% civilian increase with no change to our property tax rates. Council is going to have opportunity to consider a disabled homeowner property tax freeze in fall 2024. That was a request of several different elected officials. We thought that was a great idea, and we can schedule that for consideration in fall 2024, which puts it into effect not this tax year, but the following tax year. And then, of course, we've got several of our individual funds. You have to realize sometimes you're seeing funds that you've worked directly with, like that utility fund, where you're essentially the board of directors of a business called our utility fund. But you also have a lot of input on various things from the appointments you make. The airport board, the paddock board, the park board, TERS's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the power center board of directors. They all look at bits and pieces and parts of what we're doing here and are able to make recommendations back to you. And so when you look at those parts of the budget, you're seeing things that they have already reviewed. So that's a quick review about where we stand on the budget. If you're asking the question, okay, so now say again, when do I get a full binder to review? That's Friday. You get a big binder, and it'll have every line item in it. What's in today's packet that you already received last Friday was the preliminary, and there'll be the edits I just discussed will show up on Friday, and then all of the details, anything where we already gave you a summary sheet, you get the full slate of details from there. And so that'll be some binders that we get out to you on Friday. So that's a quick status, and Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Council, one of the things we discussed last week was the deficit that our challenge we were going to have in 2025. We had discussed that we thought we could close the gap, and I reached out to and asked Mike and staff to give you more detail on how that gap was going to be closed. They did that. So does anybody have any questions or comments tonight? Again, we're not going to vote on anything. This is just for discussion.
I had a question about the library.
Yes.
I'm surprised that we made a cut there, knowing how many people we serve, even not only in Terrell and our surrounding communities, but just Kaufman County. in
Hoffman
general.
County.
And how much was that, 10,000?
So great comment to bring up. We actually added $40,000 to the budget this year for library to have a contingency fund because we just didn't know all the details with moving into the new building that they're moving into over there at the depot. And we didn't want to run into a problem with their contract funds or anything else like that. And just putting additional scrutiny on it, I just didn't feel like I could recommend leaving that increase the same. So that's dialing back an increase from 40, and now the increase will only be 30.
What was the director's feedback of the library? What feedback did you get from her?
No negativity there. I mean, we're to her, it's still a net additional $30,000. Yeah.
It was another, go back to that, maybe first.
Can you be in the PowerPoint? Yeah.
Yeah, please, thank you. Explain the part where you talked about you reallocated from city projects. I don't know the term. Let's look at it. Maybe, which way? Yes. 4 from the bottom, the 89,000.
So 89,000 is citywide projects. So again, that's going to be stuff like some of the workers' comp insurance. It's going to be things of that type, that tuition reimbursement. So it's, I'll say it like this. Whenever we have it in the general fund, that means only your property tax rate supports it. What are we doing in the employee support fund? In the employee support fund, we've got an overall fund, and within that overall fund, who pays into it? Your fleet program pays into it, your general fund pays into it, and your utility fund pays into it. So when everybody's paying into it, you're spreading those costs against all of the actual employees instead of just having it supported by property taxes. And so this is just something that we've looked at from time to time over the years to say, well, gosh, should we put those costs in the HR department and let the property tax rate pay for it, or should we really allocate that somewhere else? And this was just the year where we said, you know what, let's go ahead and move those over. So the spending numbers are the same, but we're just now accounting for them elsewhere.
Thank you.
So is this going to be, this slide here, when I get my amended budget on Friday, when you make your changes,
Yes, ma'am.
all of these will be better explained in a line-by-line item?
All of these will be shown in that way. So, for example, if you open up this book right here, I'm just going to use the first one because it's a convenient example. If I open up this book right here, which is tonight's City Council agenda. Tonight's City Council agenda has exactly what was in there way back on August the 30th, which was, here's a line item budget. And if you look in it, you'll see that admin has a $10,000 budget line item for consultant. When you look at what we hand you on Friday, you'll see that as a 0. Okay? Yeah.
So Mike, am I to understand, say on line 4 here, where we have adjust contract labor to FY23 actual, and we're saving $40,000, am I to understand that we were intending to allocate $40,000 additional dollars to this over what we were spending in FY23, but we've decided now that that's not necessary, and we're going back to what we were spending in
Yeah, so the estimate this time around we were making based on some trends we were seeing in FY24, and we said, well, let's assume those continue and round that number up. And as we went back and just put more scrutiny on our spending, and we said, you know what, that we're just going to have to make sure we don't do that, right?
Which
we're going to have to
of
be
these-
careful with that spending item. And honestly, I don't recall that one off the top of my head, but we still have somewhere around $80,000 or so for finance contract labor. And so they'll be fine, right?
Okay.
But what we'll do is we're just not allowing them that increase.
Were there any of these adjustments where we went back to the FY23 expenditure that were painful, that we looked at and thought, that's going to be a little painful to do?
Well, I don't mind saying the one I will worry the most about, if you go to the next PowerPoint slide, is the building maintenance. We got a building that breaks here. We've got other buildings that break. This is the real world of, we have old facilities and old buildings, and this means that we're going to start the year with $360,000 in that line item instead of having $385,000 in that line item. Will we spend all of $385 this year? I don't believe we will, but that is what we had budgeted this year. So this is saying, well, never mind that we budgeted a little higher in FY 24. Let's just roll back to our actual spending in FY 23. And I think we'll make it, but by all means, if something breaks, we may be in a little bit of worry about it, Will the $25,000 move the needle? I think we'll be okay. I think we're going to make it here. I'll give you another example. Your demolitions end up being reactions to actions of the Building Standards Commission. So in FY 24, we budgeted for that line item to be zero, just assuming that we had a lot going on and we probably weren't going to move forward while we were working on other priorities and do any Building Standards Commission meetings. And that was a guess, because you never do know, right? But that's how we budgeted in FY 24. This time around, we put it in originally at $76,000. And just as we went back and looked at it again, and we said, you know what, we can just move this thing down to $46,000. I don't know how many Building Standards Commission meetings we'll have and how many buildings will make it there. Remember, our goal is voluntary compliance, right? So if we do a good job on voluntary compliance, then we may luck into a zero spending. On the other hand, if you don't get voluntary compliance, we all know what that means, right? If we really have 4 or 5 structures that go through the whole Building Standards Commission process and need to get demolished at the end of that, and the owners won't do it themselves, then we face that decision. And remember, you don't review Building Standards Commission orders. Once they order it, there's a state law that says I've got to knock it down. I can never remember if it's in 30 days or 60 days, but I have a hot period of time I'm working with under state law to tear it down. So since we did anticipate having at least one Building Standards Commission meeting, I'd like to have the 46 remain in the budget. Do I really need the 76? It really just depends on whether or not we hit a commercial structure. If they're residential, we'll have plenty of funds. If we run into something commercial, I'm going to have to come back and brief you on it and let you know. So.
But suffice to say, we're a bit near the knuckle on some of these items, it sounds like, where if something were to go wrong, we might be in a little bit of trouble because we budgeted a little in excess, and now we really have no excess at this point, right? What about on the streetlight maintenance situation? The savings are $60K.
Streetlight maintenance, that's normally around a $700,000 budget. We bumped that up in FY24 because we needed to repair some of the lights that we are under contract with TxDOT to maintain. So I know that's I'm in the weeds now. But when you're driving along 148, there's a section of lights that we paid for that don't meet the TxDOT requirements for lights. When you drive over the State Highway 34 bridge, believe it or not, they didn't want to put lights on the bridge and on the northern section running north from there. So therefore, we have to pay for certain things related to those street lights. Doesn't matter if we don't like it. That was, a council decision way back in the Wayback Machine when those projects were built. And we said, okay, they're there, we're going to pay those bills. The reason it was high in FY '24 was that we had somebody run over a couple of those and damage them, and it was our responsibility to repair, right? You would have thought, oh, surely that will be TxDOT. In FY '24, that was a high expense, and frankly, that particular one, we just really didn't catch the idea that we don't have some that have been run over. And so we felt like we could fair game get back to the FY '23 actual on that. Now, again, if we have somebody run something over and damage something, then we'll be back and we'll tell you all about it and let you know what happened, so.
The last comment I have is just one of the things I don't see on the suggested cuts here is I feel like we do spend a considerable amount on consulting fees, external consultants for various projects. Maybe just taking a look at where we can and can't do things in-house as opposed to hiring sort of expensive consulting firms for some of these projects. I know we have one of our very valued partners here tonight, but just in other circumstances, you know, I feel like sometimes there may be issues we could address with internal staff.
I think that's a fair comment. We're happy to try to do that. I would give you the following example. We sort of take it for granted, the presentation that Raylan gave last week, that we're updating interior to the organization our zoning handbook. That zoning ordinance is a beast. And I will tell you that a lot of cities would just say, hey, go hire a consulting firm, pay them $200,000, and let them come back with a bunch of edits. Well, in this case, Raylan and Chris Snap and Jay Potts and Jana Wampler and myself and a couple other folks went through all of that, and Greg spends time with the legal details as it goes over to his side of it, and we're saving money, and we didn't hire a consultant to do that project. So when we can, we do that. I would say that we're mindful of that. I hope that every time we bring forward a consultant, y'all will challenge us on that, because I think it's a good question. But it's a balance, and I think we got a pretty good balance here, but we'll keep being mindful to it, so.
All right.
One
Okay.
additional point, Councilman, I wanted you to be aware of this. Having had past experience with Building and Standards Commission, you mentioned that. When property owners in this town understand and are faced with the reality that the city will take action, you're gonna find there'll be a whole lot more voluntary compliance with those things than you would otherwise see. And I think at least that's been our experience when we were doing that in a much greater degree than we are right now. And obviously, we want to undertake it again. So I think you're going to see a lot of voluntary compliance. I really do.
So, Council, thank you very much. I just want to give thanks to Mike Sims and our departments. You got to remember that each department was asked to give a little bit out of the expenses, and we were able to address the gap there. For the library, I think at one time we had discussed whether or not we were going to increase rates on out-of-town users. You know, that's still an option for us for the library. We don't want to. Main thing is we want to make sure that the service is there for the kids. I guess all of our concerns are that we're able to absorb these cuts in the city without putting the city in any danger of not delivering services to our residents. That would be police and fire. This is the main thing. So, you know, we're just doing due diligence and making sure that we're balanced at our budget. So thank you for your inputs, and we look forward to moving forward with it.
The only other comment, I'm sorry. The only other comment I would end with is it's very helpful to have 5 eyes of elected officials going through it, and I can assure you the department heads will go through it. Mark Mills has spent a lot of time on it, Shelley, Tracy Rosales, the department heads, but that doesn't mean we catch everything. And so if you see something in there, again, it's supposed to be a cooperative process. We're happy for your input. So as you get that binder on Friday and you start kind of comparing things and making notes, it may be that you catch something that's a great policy decision, and I'm not offended if you catch something just a flat-out mistake. Both are okay and both are welcome. So we're happy to get that input from you. The 10th is another just opportunity to chat about it, and then the 17th and the 24th are your voting opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Next item on the agenda, discuss 10-year capital plan. This is going to be handled by our downtown project manager, Raylan Smith.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Does it sound like it's on? I'm bringing to you tonight just the capital plan. This is exactly how it was presented to you during your budget retreat. We've added a little bit of language there in the front, but that's really just our attempt to try to get Angie, the phone.
Ejected.
We are working on getting some of that language that needs to be put in there for the final presentation, which you all know gets shared out with the banks, et cetera. So that's what the first couple of pages were. The other comment that I had from the budget retreat was y'all wanted to see some of the allocations and just to stay mindful of our current COs. So we had previously given you just that summary of all the COs, and so you're accustomed to seeing kind of this breakdown of our 2023 A, B, and C. So this will be what we'll constantly keep bringing back to you as we fund additional projects, but we did go ahead and provide that allocation. You'll notice that the Series A and B, I grouped those together because it's very confusing because some of it's paid out of the water utility fund, some of it is paid out of wastewater, and so it's just better to combine those to give you, because those projects are listed twice. So I went ahead and combined that for you. Other than that, it's just the standard projects that we've been talking about. We do know that during the budget retreat, we talked about not necessarily gluing you to a particular fiscal year. We know that we're not coming to you for any obligations right now for borrowing for fiscal year 25. So we're looking at these as kind of like a 2-year window. But these are the same projects that we've gone over. We haven't added anything. And so this does get you all the way to 2035. Okay. And of course, we'll do annual updates each year during your budget.
All right, so, Council, this was one of the things that we had asked to review. So I hope you got the information, review that capital plan. Does anybody have any questions specifically for Raylan this evening, or if you'd like to?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
And Raylan, I will probably have to come and sit down with you, but I'm under the impression that our utility fund is water and sewer, and all of that deals with that. And you used the word, we took some money for that from that fund. Is that towards the repairs of?
No. So whenever you're looking at the allocation, let me go back to, just to make this clear. So when you're looking at the CO series 23A and 23B, to get the total breakdown of that, we have, so whenever we borrow the $2 million for the pump station and ground storage, you're going to have a portion of that that's paid from your water, on your water side. Then you'll have a portion of that that's paid from the wastewater side. The allocation is the same because it's coming directly from the utility fund. We just keep up with those in separate accounts.
Okay, so that money is going to, utility fund money is going to utility repair.
Well, it's going to pay off this CO.
Okay.
We borrowed money for these particular projects.
And it's going to come out of that money.
So the utility fund pays back.
Okay.
Yes.
The behind-the-scenes technicality is that we have to keep track of, and as well we should, debt that is supported by common to all, water, which means it's chargeable to our wholesale customers, retail water only, which means it's only chargeable to our folks who have a water tap here in town, and wastewater. And so everything we borrow on the utility side is tracked by those three categories.
Okay. You know, I just learned about that utility fund thing, so I'm like, I'd like to keep my water.
So you'll see your interest in sinking number 2, that those are your CO payments that are directly related to your utility fund. So all of that remains separate, even your payments back.
And by the way, again, just Raylan's 100% right, but oh, by the way, it's also more complicated. Occasionally, in the past, council has borrowed and mixed it. So I probably want to say 2017 borrow is one where we borrowed money and it was combined between property taxes and water and sewer projects. And in that case, we do a little math problem off to the side so that INS1 receives a payment from the utility fund to pay for the utility fund share of the project. So it gets pretty darn complicated, and but again, all of that math is embedded in what we're looking at, and there's just a lot of detail behind the scenes.
Okay. We'll talk.
Clear as mud, right? Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Anything else?
Hey, Raylan. So quick question regarding Fire Station 3, the Fire Station 2 remodel, and the Pet Adoption Center construction. That's all the same vendor, right? That's all core construction?
Yes.
Okay.
It was all bid to be handled by the same construction company, yeah.
Okay, and they're still going to be doing the project for us. And are these dates accurate? I'm seeing that bid was August 2024, and what is the construction beginning in October 2024? That's the plan still?
So you will get your contract recommendations next Tuesday,
Okay.
and you will not take action until your October city council meeting, which will be October 22nd. So it's still following the timeline.
Okay.
So when we say under construction, that would be you award the contracts.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're awarding the construction contract. And and that's the same for the Pet Adoption Center and Fire Station 3, correct?
Yes. Yeah, you'll get those at the same
I
time.
thought we had discussed sort of getting the Fire Station 3 underway before moving with the Pet Adoption Center. We're now doing them simultaneously?
So remember, we bid them together so that we could get a little bit of value engineering and possibly having the same vendors. When I went over and met with CORE, there are some advantages. We do think that we definitely are saving some significant amounts on the pet adoption side because you have people who are probably crunching their numbers more to get the fire station. So we were able to pull those vendors, and we'll be able to highlight where we really think that we're gathering some value in doing that. But obviously, your contractors know that those are not going to be on the same timeline. Because even if you did award the contracts at the same time, pet adoption is going to be finished way before fire station. And so there was no guarantee that they would be under construction even at the same time. And simply, you're not going to have too much crossover, especially with your construction timeline. We're not saving any time by having the same electricians. They would never be working at the same time.
Yeah.
So you'll get the numbers, and we'll, do some digging, and I'll be able to answer some questions, and y'all will have a good window to kind of process the numbers and send your questions forward.
Okay. We'll talk more. Thanks.
Yeah.
Pro Tem, good? All right, thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, discuss resolution number 2182, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute contracts for Terrell Municipal Airport fixed base operator. This is going to be handled by our city engineer, Chris Knapp.
Council Mayor, I just bring to you tonight, just basically an FYI tonight. This is in reference to the RFP concerning the as I told you about FBO. It's a test, if you remember what that was. Basically a fixed-base operator for the city airport. So this is going to be the RFP. We had two candidates submit applications and the proposals for that. I am meeting with the airport board tomorrow night to give them input on that. Two individuals that we had was Apex Executive Jet Center and then Terrell Aviation. So when we come back on September 10th, that we'll bring for a council action on this and with the recommendation.
And the recommendation will come from the airport board.
There'll be a recommendation from there.
Okay.
Has input.
On who the FBO will be.
Yes, they'll have some input on it. It'll still be a staff recommendation.
And Apex and Terrell Aviation are the two.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right. Anybody have any comments, questions? Thank you, thank you. Next item on the agenda is 5.1, discuss and consider resolution number 2171, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, establishing the updated slogan, mission, and vision statements for the City of Terrell. It's going to be handled by our Senior Policy Analyst, Amara Mata.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a follow-up to our last presentation that we had. Last time we presented the slogan, the mission, and you guys gave us some feedback on the vision statement. You guys wanted us to dig a little bit deeper, come up with some more ideas. So we did bring JBJ back. Ian is here tonight. He's going to kind of go through all three of those and kind of present to you the vision that we discussed and get some more feedback from you guys. So I'll turn it over to Ian.
All right, come forward, Ian.
How you doing, Mayor?
Good, I'm doing
Council?
well.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm really excited to show you the updated options that we have today. I'm really excited because we got 2.5 out of 3 of them right. So hopefully we can get this across the finish line and get going. So just want to kind of recap where we were last time with the vision, with the other statements. Slogan, build your legacy. You guys seem like you were on board with that. The next one was the mission, which Councilman Robeson came up with, lead the way. I want to give credit where credit is due. And so now that I've gotten your opinions about what you want to see in the vision statement, kind of taking this outside part of it out and focusing more on Terrell, these are the 3 options that myself and the team came up with. The first one, Terrell, an authentic hometown where families thrive, businesses grow, and tradition is valued. The next one is going to be Terrell, an authentic hometown where families thrive, businesses grow, and community is a way of life. And then our final option, Terrell, an authentic hometown where families thrive, businesses grow, and the joys of life are real. I'm happy to discuss any of these. My personal recommendation would be community is a way of life, but again, you guys are the group that I'm trying to get this approved by, so.
Option 2?
Yes, sir.
Is one you,
Is my personal recommendation, but I am open to the other 3 as well.
authentic hometown where families thrive, businesses grow, and tradition is valued. The original one?
No, the second one. Community is a way of life.
Right.
That's his recommendation.
Yeah. All right, so we'll just start on this end, lead the way, question mark, not not exclamation. Go ahead.
I would just like to understand, what does that mean to you, community as a way of life? What was the intention there?
So one thing that I've really admired and really loved since I've been here is the family feel that I run into everywhere here in Terrell. And so community is not something to where, oh, we're going to have something at the rec center, or, oh, we're going to have something at the bowling alley. It's everywhere you go. For instance, my dad was at the grocery store about a month ago and ran into City Manager Sims, and they were just sitting in the grocery store having an hour-long conversation about family, about life, about business. But that's what community is to me, is the people that I see at this table, at the table behind me, these are people that I see out and about. These are the people I see when I'm out having dinner out here. So community is not somewhere, it's not a place, it's everywhere you're going, everywhere you do, everything you're doing. And so that's why I really thought of when I thought of Terrell is, you can't go anywhere here, whether it's city council and everybody was hugging and having handshakes and stuff before. Community really is a way of life here in every aspect. And so that's why option 2 is my strong recommendation, because that's something I've been able to feel.
That's good. My only thought is that, with something like your slogan, it's sort of like what you are, right? Your mission statement is kind of like, what you're doing, right? And then your vision statement is like what you're aspiring to be. That's your aspiration, right? That's what you're reaching toward. So I just, when I read it, it kind of feels like what we are, as opposed to sort of the vision that we're reaching toward.
Can I say that I think to a certain extent that's intentional? And so this is exactly the right topic for y'all to talk about. when we discuss it internally, we think of it this way. What do you want to be able to have people who live here 10 or 15 years from now still be able to say about our community? A lot of cities that are, oh, we're 20,000 now, and we're going to be 40,000 in 10 or 15 or 20 years, whatever. They all write vision statements about what they hope they might be in the future. The overwhelming thought that I keep coming back to in this city is people like Terrell today, they want these words to be true today and true 10, 15, 20 years from now. So then it becomes incumbent upon us to say, how are we going to pull this off where we're so popular, everybody wants to move here, but we still want to be an authentic hometown where families thrive, businesses grow, and communities are a way of life? How do we pull that off as we grow? So that's a heck of a challenge.
It is, and I see the thinking there for sure. My only thought is like, like I work for the Dallas Fire Department, right? And our vision statement is something to the effect of to become a world-class fire department with the most state-of-the-art rescue equipment and blah, blah, blah. It's to become this. It's what you're looking to reach toward. And I see this, if you're kind of saying, we'd like to maintain this aspect of what Terrell is as we grow, I think that's meaningful. But if that's what we all agree that we're looking to become, is kind of become what we are.
So, you know,
Become more ourselves. That's an adequate vision.
When I talk to the community, to the citizens, we want Terrell to grow, but we don't want Terrell to grow. We want it to grow with family in mind.
bless you.
With the reading, the summer reading project in mind, with the pool in mind. We want to keep it at we know we're going to get to this huge number, but we still want to be small. And I think the most important thing I know about this community since I've returned is it's not community like, oh, we're going to a building. It's family. It's the ability to disagree over a cup of coffee without shooting somebody. That's who we are. We have that tension, but we want to be close. We want to maintain that closeness. And of all the things I've seen so far, this is the one that in the future, we still want community, family, chosen family to be a way of life.
And if I may, Councilwoman, that's kind of what I was getting at, is kind of the idea of if it says something to the effect of, to become the central hub for business and blah, 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 while maintaining our authentic hometown lifestyle where communities grow and it needs to reach towards something. We want to be this while keeping this. See what I'm saying? And I think it does that, but.
Excellent point, Councilman. I think the piece that you're talking about could be more addressed on the marketing side, which our team would like to make a presentation based on that as well. I think this general statement lets people kind of make up in their own mind what that looks like. And so when I'm saying community is way of life, I'm talking about the new library project that's going to be happening. I'm talking about the businesses that we plan to bring to you guys, because we're just expanding on communities. So by keeping it very general, it does have that vision of, hey, we're looking toward the future on building a better community, but keeping it very general so that, like City Manager Sims said, this statement is true now and it will hold true 10, 20 years from now.
I jotted down something. I think this vision statement allows people to know what we are currently living today, what we're currently living today. And then it also lets people know that once they move here, what they can expect. And it fits all of that. In my opinion, it's an authentic hometown where families thrive, businesses grow, and community is a way of life. I think that covers everything. I like it, but Mayor Pro Tem, got anything? You good? Okay.
Well, one last point. So what would it look like if we achieved this vision? See what I'm saying? Because that's what you're doing when you set a vision statement. You're saying, this is what we want to reach.
Well, I think what you're doing, though, is giving somebody a vision of what they can be when they move to the city of Terrell. Those that are living in town, living here currently, hopefully it fits in, the family's thriving and the businesses are growing and the community's a way of life. But to the councilwoman's point, there is fighting. It's family infighting, just like it would be anywhere else, right? And we need to do it in a way where we come back together. It's a full circle.
Yeah, I would say that y'all as elected officials are the judge of this, right? So if you're looking at a proposal from the Paddock Board or from the TEDC, or you're looking at a zoning of 500 acres that are being annexed, I would think that you would filter your decision through this vision. And you would say, oh, okay, we're being asked to vote on this budget, this proposal, this spending, this development agreement, this new business that might come to town. I hope you filter through this, because if staff can reliably look at this and say, aha, that's how council's going to vote because they want the future to look like that sentence, then we know how to, as staff, to do our job. We can at least try to bring you stuff that we think accomplishes this. And then when you're voting, if you're voting with this as your filter for what happens in this city, then you're the judge. You become the ultimate judge during your tenure on council about whether or not you're making that statement come true. And I think that's something that pulls y'all together as a group, right? Part of vision statements are unity of the group, and if this is where you're going, I guess maybe to the mayor's point, you still get to argue about it. Maybe that was Councilwoman Donna Renee Anderson's point. You still get to argue about it, but
Fine with arguing.
it's a connect. It's you hopefully you come back to this and say, oh yeah, well we all agree with this, so let's see if our decision matches this statement.
I see the thinking there. I do, I mean, we can vote on it. My thought, though, is just, I would just like to see it be something a bit more aspirational, something we're reaching toward, as opposed to what we currently are, if it's a vision for the future.
What
But,
suggestion would you have? You got any suggestions based?
yeah, like what I was mentioning before is something to the effect of, to become like, I don't know what the specific wording would be, but to become the central hub for business in the area or in the region, and while maintaining our authentic hometown identity where community is a way of life. Something to that effect, right? So it's reaching for a future, leading the way in business, basically, or in positive things and being our best selves while also maintaining that small town way of life.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
I have to say that I am partial to the least amount of words, the better.
Yeah.
The
same here.
least amount of words, the better. And we
Lead the way.
just, hometown, families, businesses, and community.
You know what?
Can we just vote?
Yes, because, hey, if we're looking for the perfect, if you want the perfect vision statement, we're never going to get there. We're going to get very close, and I think Ian's worked very hard. He's listened to us all. And so I'm going to, option 1, option 2, or option 3. Is there a motion on resolution number 2127 to adopt?
217.
Oh, I'm wrong, 2182. Is that the one, where are we at?
No, 217.
171.
Yeah, 2171.
Yeah,
that's
and
what-
by the way, if someone makes their motion and says that they want to approve Resolution 2171 with option fill in the blank, then we'll know what to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I move that we accept resolution number 2171, option 2.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Second? We have a motion from Donna Renee Anderson, District 2, a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Mayor Pro Tem District 4, to accept resolution number 2171 with option 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Begrudging aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda, 5.2. Ian, thank you very much.
We have,
Discuss it. Yes.
Ian,
Thanks,
Ian
Ian.
gets several thank yous on that one, man. That's a great job. Appreciate that.
Item 5.2, discuss and consider resolution number 2178, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute contracts for third-party inspections, plan review, and permitting services. This is going to be city engineer Chris Snap.
So we talked about this last week, and we got better numbers and more information to talk about today for concerning the services of a third party to look at our inspections and do some of our reviews. So one of the questions when we looked at the pricings on there, if I want to backtrack just a little bit to give you a little history on this, we've been working with Safe Built for about 5 years now. So this is something that's been going on, all right? So what I did here about 4 months ago is I just wanted to say, let's go back out on the market to make sure we're still getting the best price and things of that nature. So I want to give you a little bit more other history of that. You talked about whether we just went and got our own folks and we just did it all in-house. Well, last year we only spent about $28,000 with the Safe Built. So to contribute to get another employee, it really doesn't money out to do that a great deal. So when you look at if you look at page, start on page 272. My numbers are different because I printed it earlier. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. Back up there. So the other breakdown I want to talk with you tonight is when we looked at some of the prices, of that $28,000, only about 5% of them are the residential. Most of what we do, because we do the in-house on the residential side, what's the $28,000 is mostly on the commercial side, where it takes a lot more extensive look and review, and then also making sure they apply to the building standards and to the fire code. So when we look over on the 281, there you go. That page right there is mostly our commercials. So when I believe last week when we were talking, Councilwoman Thomas, you brought up some things that we're looking at prices and comparisons. And generally, we were looking at on the commercial side, because that's what the great deal of our business is when we look for third-party services on there. So if you look across there, and we just took some typical of what we have experienced in last year, you can see the square footage. You can start seeing the price differences across there. And generally, the Safe Built was much cheaper on the commercial side of it. On the residential, like I said, that's only when we really get overburdened with a lot of workload from there, and that's only roughly 5%. So some of it possibly could be managed from that standpoint. Mostly it's on the commercial side of how the great deal of that comparisons were done. So recommendation is to proceed and go in negotiations with Safe Built. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Chris?
I have a question. So is the ordinance going to specify that this is more for commercial, or it's just going to be general and it's not going to say that? Because I think it's going to make a total difference on what we see.
So what we did is we went for RFP for a great deal of services. One good example is pool inspections. We got rates for pool inspection in case, but currently I use my health inspector for pool inspections. So you might see pricings and comparisons in there, but right now we're currently doing that in-house. As you remember, we contracted that service, and that service is going very well. So he does all the pool services with all the hotels and all those arrangements. So there's other services in here that we just would never use or don't use, but we went ahead and priced them so we could have the ability, if we ever needed to use them, we don't have to negotiate those rates.
So this is mostly for commercial. And
Based off our workload, you're correct.
Would the fees be the same if you got in a bind and had to use them for residential?
No, there's fees for residential and there's fees for commercial.
What page is that?
So the residential is on the first page, 280. Yep, there you go. So you can see there's a small difference. Like, for example, in the residential and the construction for a 1,500 square foot to a 10,000 square foot home, you're looking at $5, $10 between some of the candidates. Anywhere from around $10 between two candidates. So very small. The big savings is on the commercial side.
Is it something wrong with going with one company with residential and then a different company with commercial?
Commercial, just a lot of logistics on our side on the back end, dealing with two contractors.
But the RFP was for them to submit both,
Yes, correct.
and that's what you recommended on.
Yep.
So I think what Mayor Pro Tem is, and I agree, if we say that it's going to be mostly commercial, and we end up using it for mostly residential, then we feel like we made a mistake in which recommendation you made. Not that you would do that, I don't think that would be the problem, but I think that's probably a little bit of what's being thought about currently. And you said only maybe 5% of those.
We've only done 5%. Of the years back, I can tell you the history is the residential has been done in-house, which that saves us dollars having to be spent.
I mean, if that changes, is it any kind of notification, is it any kind of safety net? That's why I think
There's no,
sometimes if you just clear, and you put that in the ordinance of what this is and how it's gonna be utilized, you negotiate, just like you said, oh, we spent $28,000 last year. I won't be surprised next year if it's more than 28,000 and we could have hired a staff member. I can't prove that, but when you have your ordinances and they're not just specific to what we need and what we want and the problem we're trying to take care of, it's gray areas. You can get out in the weeds and ditches. So if this is what you need, and this is what we need to do because of the abundance of work, the overwork for commercial and the time, I think that's what our ordinance ought to be geared toward. It shouldn't be this open gaping, and then, that's just my concern.
So let's make sure we get the comments to staff.
Yeah, ask. You got a
Good.
question for him?
All right, anyone else?
No.
Okay,
I do have a question.
yes.
Like, give me an example for residential, if somebody did, put a shed in the back of their house. How much is that permit now, if it's a small shed?
for a shed, we would do that in-house and that wouldn't be any cost in here.
Okay.
These are third parties. That's what I'm saying is, all that right now is being done in-house. For a shed and that kind of thing, we would do that in-house.
But if,
Those are small jobs.
but if something happened and we had to resource that out, what would that cost from this company?
Accessory building,
So 300 to,
245, 400, and 199, and 300.
So the way she worded that, I just wanted to say something real quick. So this is what the city's going to be charged if we decide in-house that we have a $20 accessory building permit and we need to outsource someone to look at that. It would cost the city $320-something. Our permit fee would still be the exact same to the property owner. So I just want to make sure that we're not crossing, these are not the fees that are charged to the permit holder.
Yeah.
I know it, but I don't know if that makes sense in business. As a city and looking at, so will they charge us that? But the fees is gonna be what they are to to the person that's applying for the permit. That's what you're saying?
Your fee ordinance comes later.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm waiting.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Thank you. I needed.
But that's a whole separate item coming down the road.
But she does
That's
raise a
going
good
to
point.
discuss all the fees.
She does raise a good point, because you look at the accessory building, you said it's how much? What was it? I'm just looking at it.
For
300?
accessory building, it would be
200?
245.
245, okay. And then, so what does it cost just currently, what would that cost the person who's building a shed, roundabout?
Ooh, I don't memorize fees.
Okay, but I think the point that is important to note is that then we're losing money on permitting because we're paying someone
Right.
this exorbitant amount to do the work to get the permit done, and we're only getting a $50 fee out of it.
So
That's-
what's
that's a-
coming
that's a
down the
valid point.
pike is all the fees that we're going to be talking about to recoup all those.
Right.
So we are gonna have to raise
There's
fees
gonna
to
be a
accommodate
significant-
this.
There's going to be a significant increase across
but
several
we're-
fees.
But we're taking a hit on a lot of stuff in the city.
That's
We're not
correct.
covering cost, just FYI for folks. We are not covering our cost on a lot of these fees. That's why we're fixing to have to look at and determine, are we gonna continue that policy, or are we gonna cover the cost that the city incurs?
So to better help address what you're thinking, if we're on the same wavelength, is I wanted to get these prices right here, so when we come with the new fee structure, we can make sure we recoup these fees in the event we use those.
Because that's hard for me, if you're putting a shed in the back of your house to pay this astronomical number. Like, I guess my mindset is just different. If you build a $300,000 house, you gonna get your money back as a school district, as a municipality, as a county, because that house gonna be there. And the value gonna keep going up. You get that back. But what I'm saying, when you put a shed in the back of your house, I don't want it to be too exuberant for our citizens. But if we tack these fees on, we're gonna have to get it back because of policies and ordinances like this. But maybe we need to vote on this and move on to the fees, because that's gonna help me understand how much they're gonna be for certain little things that could go on around the community, or somebody might come and need a permit for. That's gonna help me better. So maybe I'm thinking ahead when we need to be going ahead, moving with this one. But my only concern is, I don't want this to change. I don't want what we've been doing to change when I look at the amount we're paying and what we're doing. I think things need to be taken care of. But I just wanted to kind of look the same when I skim back at this and ask for numbers next year. If it's a lot different, I'm gonna be concerned and I'm gonna be disappointed, and I'm gonna feel like that the processes weren't followed out in I got the question, I didn't get truthfulness to the questions I'm asking today. Does that make sense, my concern?
Yes.
But if you say, this for commercials, let's go do residential, I'm okay with that.
So I don't believe the councilwoman is thinking too far ahead. I think she's thinking correctly to address it now, because our rates are going to have to increase because of what we're doing here. So thinking about how the impact to rates right now is probably the right thing to think. This is going to raise our permitting rates.
And I would just go back to a different Chris Snap presentation. In your budget retreat, you were given a PowerPoint, and admittedly, we were running out of time, so it's not like we spent a ton of time on this. The staff recommendations for the new fee structure was based on the June meeting, the June budget retreat. In the June budget retreat, the message was, we thought we were hearing from council. We could have been wrong, but we think we were hearing from council, recoup your costs. Figure out cost recruitment and create a fee schedule that recoups cost. In your August budget retreat, Chris Knapp provided you a PowerPoint that was our best attempt to show you cost recovery anticipating our labor costs, anticipating these sorts of costs that you see on the page here, anticipating other real-world construction costs, because sometimes those are built in there as well, right? Because all those fees cover stuff like culverts also. So that whole package, Chris has been attempting to shepherd along to you. At a meeting, I think last meeting, but it might have been the meeting before that, Chris was back here again, and he had that same PowerPoint, and we said, look at all those pages of fee numbers that are updated fee numbers. Those fee numbers are the exact fee numbers that, to the best of our ability as staff, we think will get us to wholesale cost recovery on all of that. And when we say it, what we mean is the cost for Chris to look at it, the cost for Jeremy to look at, the cost for DJ to look at it, the cost for the person to go out into a field, if it took a contractor, if it didn't took a contractor, on average overall for the entire program, are we getting our costs covered? So those two PowerPoints will be reflected in the ordinances that you see, I think, on the 17th. We definitely don't mind having that on the agenda again on the 10th, so you can see them again. But they were built anticipating this kind of number. And once you vote on those, they don't change unless you vote on them again, right? So once you vote on that ordinance, if you simply don't want to talk about it or don't want to consider it, or staff says, hey, we need them to do 5% higher next year, and you say, nope, we're not doing any more, that's just a council decision. Because once you vote on them in September of 2024, they're binding until there's another vote of council. So you will lock in your revenues whenever you have that vote in September. The cost you're looking at, hey, the cost is going to vary based on staff change costs, based on how often Chris has to use Safe Build, based on, Safe Build or one of the other firms changing their pricing. Plenty of things can change on the cost side of it, but you will lock in your ordinance your fee numbers until you feel like changing them again.
Let me see if I can help the council out a little bit, though, on this.
Yeah.
So if we use Safe Built, who determines that staff's too busy? Is that Chris call? Is that a Mike call? Is that Mark? Or who is it that says, you know what, we're just too busy, we need to get Safe Built in here to review some plans for us? Is this coming internally from you?
This is internally coming from me.
Okay.
And also Blake Mays, the building official.
Okay, cool.
So we look at our workload. You ask the question of what's hurting if we don't do it? Well, it's just the customer service. Right now, I just have to tell you, you're going to just have to wait. So we look at our workload, we look at how much in there, and then we try to shoot a goal of anywhere from 14 to 21 days to get it back. So if we see that we can't accommodate that in that time frame, then we'll make the decision to go to the third party.
Okay. No,
That's usually the only time when we go into there.
and I'm good. So is
So
it,
it's not a crutch that we just run off to and go, well, it's easier just to get someone else to do it.
right, no, and that's what,
Be
that's exactly what they needed to hear. This isn't,
No, this
hey, you
is-
know what, I feel like I'm overworked, let Safe Built
Yeah.
handle it.
At one time, we had 20 reviews going on. Right now, I don't have any. So you see how the roller coaster effect. So then during that 20 workload, there was a lot of people put on the back burner. And they were just told, I'll get to you when I get to you. And it's a priority system. Like I said,
So
one
is-
was 290 pages. You don't do those in 2 hours. So
So
that's
is
how
there-
it's adjusted.
Is there a number for the council to feel comfortable that you wouldn't go over for using Safe Built? Is there not to exceed number, or is it just internally, we just don't want to go over 27,000 or 30,000, whatever that number may be?
You're regulating that in your budget, because you have certain dollar amounts that you're giving Chris in your engineering budget and your municipal development budget to allow him to pay contractors.
I'm
You
just
can't
trying to
exceed that, yeah.
I'm trying to make sure everybody's comfortable with the direction we're going.
And that's part of the consulting fees that you were talking about, Phil.
Okay, cool.
That's what the line item
All right,
would come.
everybody good? All right, thank you, Chris. This is item 5.2, and it's Resolution 2178, and it's to enter into agreement with Safe Built Texas LLC. Is there a motion on 5.2? Make a motion to approve resolution number 2178, authorizing the city manager to negotiate a contract with Safe Built Texas LLC. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a second from, so there's a motion by the mayor, second for Donna Renee Anderson, District 2, to approve resolution number 2179, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute contracts. 2178, I'm sorry. 2178, to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute contracts with Safe Built Texas LLC. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 2179. This is discuss and consider resolution number 2179, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute contracts for consulting engineering services. Again, this is Chris Knapp.
So this one is identical to the one we just talked about. However, this is for engineering services. This was a recommendation. We talked about Freeman Milliken and then Kimberly Horn being selected as the two firms for us to go out in the same circumstances, in the same shed a lot that we were talking about previously. So nothing has changed from that. We talked about, you wanted to know, Councilwoman Thomas, of what all the list of things that I do or the engineering department does. You go, what is the amount of work? Well, lo and behold.
Don't ask me for a list that I do not produce. So, this is like Mike said, this is like a kid in a candy store. You get to ask me what I get to do. Here, Mike, you get 2 or 3 of these. First and foremost, this makes me very uncomfortable talking about. I don't do this. This is not my cup of tea. I just do the work, okay? So I'm not here politicking for that, okay? That's just not the world I grew up in, and just makes me uncomfortable. But one, you ask a question, and from the engineering standpoint, that's all the things we have done in the last 12 months that not only just me, but also a great deal of the staff. So in some of these projects, especially in the development side, as you know, there are multiple phases going on. So the North Spur that was going with the water line, and then we have people coming in here, kicking the tires and taking our time and going, where's the water, where's the sewer, where's all these things that are going on? So some of these reviews that are just kicking the tires, we do those in-house. Okay, we don't do, I'm not asking or soliciting to use these firms and doing that. These engineering firms are what I presented to you tonight, Freeman Milliken and Kimberly Horn, is when we actually get development plans. And they're the 290 pages, they're the 70 pages, and they're going over a great deal of grading. So right now, we're kind of doing it in-house. It's DJ and Jeremy and I looking at grading plans, civil plans, contours, where's the water going, trying to educate. We're doing a lot right now. We have some drainage problems, especially in the Stallings area, and we have builders going over there. And we've kind of been a little bit hard-nosed of going, where's the water going? In the past, we just kind of, the water goes to the ditch, and it was just put at that kind of contact. Well, when you look at it, and we look at a 2-inch rain, and there's water bubbling and water puddling in areas, we got to find a way to make sure that it doesn't. Because we've got caught in a few incidents where the water is getting into the sewer. That makes our sewer back up, et cetera, complicates a lot of issues. So anyway, that is just some of the things that we got going on. We just put that list, I wouldn't say quick, but there's a large majority of those Some of them are minor, some of as far as can be fixed in a week, some of them are just, they're still ongoing. So this is where that additional resource of help when it comes to reviews. And we try to be prudent with responding back and not just look at the reviews and going, well, it's going to take me 5 or 6 weeks to get back to you. That doesn't go well with, it's not a good customer service. So do I need a staff of 15 people? No. So this is where that resource comes in.
I would like to add, there's many times that the mayor's been at City Hall after developers have met with our staff, and almost to a person, each one of them have complimented the work of the city manager, the engineers, anybody who's reviewed their, even the safety, fire, police that have reviewed plans or worked with these developers. They all indicate that we are, as a city, are doing good work. Why does that matter? Because they're out talking to other developers, and when they ask about the city of Terrell, is that somebody you want to work with, we're getting positive reviews from their peers rather than it just coming from us. So I think that's a good thing. And again, we want to continue that customer service. Our staff's doing everything that they can. Are we short? Yeah. I meant, could we use more in engineering and more in mapping and more in just all around? I think we could, but we have to work with what we've got. And so this is just a way for us to continue this service. Anybody have any questions for Chris on this item?
Chris, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I'm kind of just a straight shooter. Sometimes that's not.
Oh, you didn't make me uncomfortable.
But I want you to feel like.
No, I don't like talking about myself. That's why I feel uncomfortable.
No, that's cool.
That's
I'm
not my
trying to
world
put
I
you
grew up in.
Place. You do a good job, and your staff does too. And thank you for this. I know this gives me an idea of the work you do. I'm going to teach you and tell you my address is on here. On my neighbors, actually. And it ought to be like ×4 on here. As y'all wake me up a lot at night, Yeah. So I appreciate what y'all do, and I appreciate the list to know that there are some things that we do need help on, and we need to get you the assistance you need, especially when we have projects like this. I know this was asked last week, but I can't remember. I've slept since then. What is the answer to needing both of these two engineering firms?
So in the event that we have, Kimberly Horn actually does a project and they produce a large print. They've done some water projects and some developer projects. It's not good moral and ethics to have them review their own work, because naturally it's going to be great. So we'll get a second party, and then it's also an issue of workload if their workload's high.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sticking to that.
Anyone else? She remembered. Anyone else? All right. Is there a motion on resolution number 2179?
I make a motion to approve resolution 2179.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Mayor Pro Tem District 4, a second from Phil Robinson, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 5, to approve resolution number 2179 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is consent agenda. Council, we may take each of these individually, together or individually. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Phil Robinson, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 5, a second from Donna Renee Anderson, District 2, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 2-1. Next item on the agenda, we're going to adjourn an executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following: Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property; Section 551.074, personnel matters; Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. Is there any, at this time, we're going to reconvene into executive session. We'll go back to the Tommy Spencer room. We are now in executive session. At this time, we're going to reconvene into regular session and consider action, if any, on items discussed in executive session. Are there any motions? Hearing none, we are adjourned.